Alrighty. Well, uh, I don't really know what's happening with the Buy Me a Coffee fund. I gotta wait for a message from my social worker. I'm trying very hard not to get into a conflict situation with her again. I got into a conflict situation with her a couple of years ago because she tried to force me to change the way I report my earned income. And it looks like she may be taking another kick at the can to try to get me to do that again, to reopen the issue. If that's the case, I'm just going to cancel the Buy Me a Coffee fund completely and just be done with it. The last time I wound up, after going back and forth with her for months, of her trying to get me to agree to change the way I report my income, which would have meant cutting my own throat, basically. It would have saved the government some money, but it would have meant cutting my own throat and putting myself into an even deeper state of poverty than I'm already in. Um, if if it comes down to that, where I'm told you have no choice, if you're going to do this Buy Me a Coffee fund, and your earned income from your business has to also be included, then I'm just going to do away with the Buy Me a Coffee fund and continue as I have, just with reporting my earned income from my business on a yearly basis, and I just won't have the Buy Me a Coffee fund. That's all. It's too bad because it really has helped me out, but like I say, I've already offended my social worker once. When that all was going on, I finally sent her a very terse reply. Basically sent her a very ignorant reply, and I could tell by her reply to that I had hurt her feelings. She took it personally, and it hurt her feelings. And see, this is a woman I'm dealing with, and I have a bad history with women. I do. I just don't communicate well with women. I don't understand women very well, and they really don't understand me very well. And so I often offend women. I'll give you an example. This is a typical thing that will happen with me when I'm dealing with women. My cousin, who I'm fairly close to, have mostly a good relationship with, but she is a woman, she wanted to gaffle onto a bunch of barn board. Well, I have a female friend who has a farm, and there was a part of the barn at the back of her barn that was falling down. That was of no use anymore. It was just falling down. Anyway, she told me that I could take any barn board from there that I wanted. So what I did is I brought my cousin over, and I had a truck at the time. It was the truck that the guy screwed me on the deal, and it ended up not being a good truck, and I ended up losing thousands of dollars, and it really screwed me up, in a multitude of ways. And I'm still paying for that too. That's part of the debt that I'm still trying to pay off. That and the debt of trying to heat the house that I had that wasn't insulated properly. Anyway, I brought her over, and she's taken and she's throwing boards into the back of my truck, just throwing them in haphazardly, randomly, and to the point even where there were boards hanging over the edge of the truck box and everything. And we were out of room, but she still wanted to put more in there. She was just going to heap it up. Well, I mean, you can't do that, because if you go down the road like that, that's an unsecured load. And if any of those boards fell off the truck and caused an issue, it'd be bad, somebody run over them, and if they hit a car or somebody run over them or whatever. You can't do that. And so I told her, I actually asked her several times not to put any wood in the truck. I told her, I will load the truck. Just put the wood beside the truck. Whatever you want to take, put it beside the truck, and I will load the truck. And she ignored me. She just kept throwing stuff in there. And three different times I asked her, and she ignored me 3 different times. And I find this happens a lot with women because they don't respect me. They see me as weak and creepy and different things like that, and they don't respect me. And so finally, I got to the end of my rope, because I knew I couldn't drive out of there with that load the way it was. And she was still throwing stuff on there. And so I went and I pulled everything out of there and I threw it all down on the ground, and I did it roughly because I was mad, and I also wanted to be seen to be doing it roughly to kind of get the point across that, now I'm mad. I've told you 3 times and you're still doing this. You're pissing me off, basically. And when I had unloaded the truck, I marched over to her and I said, don't you dare put one more fucking piece of wood in that truck. Just like that. And when I said that, of course, she was hurt, and my friend who owned the property was looking at me and judging me. I could tell, I could actually feel the judgment from her, because now I had just abused this woman. And see, that's what I find, though. I don't be listened to until I get to that point where I become aggressive. And then I get labeled an abuser and a narcissist and all the rest of it. Also in stores, I find in public places, every so often I'll have a woman just freak out at me for being there because she thinks that I'm wanting to rape her or to murder her or something. Just because I'm in the store. Not because I'm doing anything. I'm not a guy who tries to touch women. I'm not a guy who is like mentally undressing them, looking them up and down and trying to imagine what they're like without their clothes on. I'm not a guy who is, pulling my penis out and showing it to everybody or, or whatever, I'm not a guy who does any of that. I'm literally just like Mr. Bean in the grocery store pushing the cart, But for some reason, I've had this happen. I've had it happen a few times in grocery stores where women went completely batshit crazy on me and actually attacked me, got up in my face and shrieking and accusing me of wanting to do this, that, and the other thing to them. I was in my insurance broker's office one time and waiting to see my broker, and a woman came in. When she opened the door, I turned my head and glanced at her. I didn't know who was coming in. It was just a reflex reaction. I think everybody does that. When you're in a place and somebody opens the door and walks in, you turn your head and glance at them. Anyway, she come flying across the room, and she called me a pervert, and she said that I had just raped her. Another time, a friend of mine was staying at a rooming house, and this friend's daughter just a little girl wanted to show me a fort that she had built upstairs out of blankets and chairs and things, the way kids will do. Anyway, she was pretty proud of it. She wanted me to see it. So I go up the stairs with her. I stand in the doorway of the room, and she shows me the fort, and I say, "Oh, you did a good job there. That's real nice," and then I come straight down. I was up there for maybe a minute, if that. When I get to the bottom of the stairs, the lady who's the proprietress of the rooming house has this is back in the 90s, people had those portable phones with the long whip antenna on them. She was standing at the bottom of the stairs with this portable phone in her hand, and she said, "I'm calling the police on you." And I said, why would you do that? I had the little girl with me. She was walking down the stairs with me. She says, "Because you just raped this little girl." She was going to call the police on me and accuse me of raping the little girl. I was up there for a minute. If I was that type of a man, I couldn't have done anything, but she was determined that I had just raped the little girl. I mean, this is the stuff I have to deal with a lot when I'm dealing with women. And the social worker is a woman, and like I say, I've already hurt her feelings once. I spend a good portion of my life trying to avoid drama and violence and everything. I've had too much of it in my life, and I do actively shy away from it whenever I can. I limit my dealings with women for that reason, because it generally does not go well. In my personal life, it generally doesn't, and that's just a fact. In my dealings with men, too, sometimes, with men it isn't quite so bad because we have more of an understanding of each other. But still, men do tend to see me as weak, and they try to dominate me. And so I attract bullies and other people like that. The relation here who's mad at me for being here, he's a very volatile sort. And I'm genuinely afraid that it's going to turn to violence. And if it does turn to violence, I won't willingly take a beating. And so anything might happen at that point, you know. And I know it's best I leave here. The other family members don't want me to leave. The actual owner of the property has asked me to stay, and my friend, who's her son, has asked me to stay, but it's one of the other sons that wants me gone. And, you know, like I say, I'm afraid that it's going to go into a violent situation. And the thing is, I made up my mind when I was in my 20s that I would take another man's life even before I would take a beating. But I don't want that to happen. You know, I don't want that to ever happen. And so I avoid places and people where that might happen. When I worked for the auctioneer, his son was always trying to get me to go to a bar with him. You know, wanted me to go to the Lee Hotel with him. That's when the Lee Hotel in Smiths Falls was still open. The Lee Hotel was known as a pretty rough place. And I used to tell him, well, I don't drink. He'd say, oh, you can have a pop or something. Just come out to be sociable. I would never go because the Lee Hotel attracts the kind of people that I would end up in conflict with. You know, the kind of guys that will just come up to you with no provocation and say, what are you looking at? You know, or whatever, you know. Well, you think I look funny? In the meantime, you weren't even looking at them. Or they'll accuse you of looking at their woman or something, you know. You eyeing up my woman? In the meantime, you didn't even know they were there with a woman. You know, you didn't even know they were there. You hadn't noticed either of them. But, you know, that's the type that you get. And because, you know, I don't want to get into those kinds of situations because I know how quickly those situations can really go bad. I avoid those kinds of places, you know. Anyway, perhaps when women see me in a public place and they say I'm creepy or I give off a serial killer vibe, it could be that just the fact that the threshold for me taking another person's life is lower than that of the average person because of all the conflict I've been in and because of the fact that I'm really determined not to be abused by others, even to the point where I would take another person's life. I'd take another man's life before I'd let him give me a black eye. And I've been in confrontations where I've picked up weapons. I picked up big wrenches that I was working with and stuff when a man had come after me with every intention of using them. And the guy would know that and he'd back off. But I know if I were to actually hit the guy with that, I'd probably kill him. When the most he was going to do to me maybe is give me a bloody nose or a black eye, you know, maybe thump me around a bit. But the thing is, that wouldn't be something that I provoked and it wouldn't be a reasonable thing. I had a guy come after me one time wanting to beat me up because I don't believe in psychology and because I choose not to have anything to do with the practice of psychology. And the guy came after me wanting to beat me up for that, and I threatened him with a weapon and I backed him off. But you see, if he hadn't have backed off, I would have killed him. And so it's possible that women are picking that up. The fact that the threshold for me to kill somebody is lower than the average person. Maybe they're somehow intuitively knowing that about me and then thinking that it's even worse than it really is, you know. They might think that I'm more dangerous than I really am. I would say the threshold for me to take somebody's life is lower than it would be for the average person. But it's not at a serial killer level, and I don't really have a desire to hurt anybody or much less to kill anybody. It's just that I made up my mind many years ago that I would, if somebody brings violence to me, I'm prepared to kill that person, basically. I made up my mind a long time ago. But, you know, don't bring violence to me and I'll never hurt you. And I'll actively, if I know that you're the kind of person that would bring violence to me, I will actively avoid you. I'll cross the street, not to run into you. I won't go to places I know you go to, etc. You know, I'll stay well away from you. But, you know, bottom line is, anyway, the social worker is a woman. I've already offended her once and hurt her feelings. You can't be doing that with people who control your income, especially. Plus, I don't really like doing that. I don't actually take pleasure out of offending people. I do offend people quite often, but I don't do it as a leisure activity or as something that I take pleasure from. And believe it or not, I don't take pleasure from offending women. I know that this video I'm making now may offend some women who watch it, and that doesn't give me any pleasure, but I'm being brutally honest here. There's something about me that I just don't mix very well with certain people, and I often don't mix very well with women. And I know that, so I tend to just avoid, negative interactions with women if I can. I tend to avoid, but I'll always be honest, and if it results in a negative interaction, that's what'll happen. But right now, this thing with the social worker, I'm afraid I'm going to end up back in conflict with her. It's something that's got me worried, and I'm afraid that I'm going to end up offending her again because I don't really know how to diplomatically communicate with her and be taken seriously. So, again, because she's a woman and I just don't know how to communicate with a woman. That's basically it. And women are different. People can say, oh, women are all the same. No, they're not. There's a difference, And I can't quite explain it to you, but there is a difference. And like I say, it is what it is anyway. But I will delete the Buy Me a Coffee fund before I will get into a drawn-out battle with this woman who is the social worker that deals with my pension. I'll just delete the fund before I'll get into another one of those with her, and find myself frightening her or hurting her feelings or whatever, Anyway, that's where we're at. I can't put it any clearer than that. Like I say, this video may offend some people, but it's the truth. It's just the truth. That's all. It's just the way things are, between me and my fellow human beings. There's a reason that I hang out with a cat all the time, And actually, I get along really good with animals. I don't get on very well with people for the most part. I never really have. I've never really fit in with people, and I get along good with animals, though. I tend to spend a lot of time around animals for that reason. Anyway, that's it for now. I'd say if I offended anybody, I'm sorry, but I'm really not, because in my mind, I'm being honest, and I don't think I should be sorry for being honest, even if it does cause offense. I will say that I regret that I'm causing offense if that's what I'm doing, but I don't regret being honest about the situation. All right, we'll talk later.